if you're into an area that
every human being.
True, and this year's theme, human rights are everyday essentials, puts it simply, human rights are more than mere legal words in a document. They show up in how we live our daily lives.
Yes, how we live our daily life. Be it the right to speak or the right to work, to the right to live in safety. These are things many people still struggle to enjoy fully.
And across the world, especially in developing democracies, the conversation is no longer just about rights on paper, but rights in practice.
Right in practice. Today on Good Morning Nigeria, we will be looking at what human rights really mean in our society, the progress made so far, and the gaps that still need to be closed.
It is a conversation that touches every home and every community. I am Victor as a welcome.
And I'm Ademola Adeoye. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria this day, Wednesday. We are live on network service of the NTA. Up next is the morning news with Chineye Nwoye. And after that, we'll go straight into today's discussion. Good morning, Chineye.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. To begin our conversation on human rights, daily essential, here is a background report put together by correspondent Ibrahim Bello Gunda.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948 enshrines the fundamental rights and freedoms that belongs to every person, including the right to health and well-being. This is not always the case with challenges ranging from conflicts, displacement to climate-related emergencies, hence the protection and promotion of human rights, especially those of marginalized and vulnerable populations. As the world commemorates Human Rights Day with the theme, Human Rights, Our Everyday Essentials, the campaign underscores that human rights are practical, achievable, and guarantees of safety, dignity, and equality in an unpredictable world. The day also focuses on challenges of insecurity, justice, and protecting rights amid national challenges, with activities including dialogue, awareness, and call for action against abuses like gender-based violence, among others. In essence, Human Rights Day in Nigeria serves as a crucial moment for reflection, advocacy, and demanding stronger commitment to justice, equality, and dignity for all citizens. How can Nigeria ensure the protection of the rights of all? What are the challenges mitigating the protection of the rights of Nigerians, especially vulnerable groups? And how will those whose rights were infringed upon seek help? These and more are some of the questions guests on Good Morning Nigeria will find answers to on the program.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim, for that background report and for those questions which I know that our guests are ready to provide answers to them. We already have some of our guests in the studio, and just let me first introduce Dr. Romy Mom. He's the Executive Director, Lawyers Alert. Good morning, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good to have you join us.
Glad to be here.
All right. Also joining us on this discussion is Hilary Ogbonna. He's the Senior Human Rights Advisor, National Human Rights Commission. Good to have you join us.
Thank you for having us too. Thank you.
All right.
And via Zoom, we have been joined by Professor Joy Ngozi Ezilo, SAN, Life Bencher and Executive Director, Women and Collective. Women Aid Collective. We thank you very much for coming on the program.
All right. Okay. Let's just kickstart from our studio here with Dr. Romy Mom. Now, today is December 10, and it's the World Human Rights Day. And what does it really mean when we talk about the essentials of human rights?
Yeah, so I think it's a very important theme that was picked.
Yeah.
The essentials of human, everyday essentials. That is to say, how do we practicalize human rights in our everyday lives? How do you bring it from the abstract to reality for the vulnerable persons, which your report essentially captures? And when you look at it in Nigeria today, those issues that bothers, the man and woman on the street, the citizens and the vulnerable, they are basically three. If we are to compartmentalize them, that are really, really key today. One is the issue of economic rights and an ability to put food on the table by the ordinary Nigerian and all of that. The second, for me, will be the issues of security, displacements, and what is, bringing to the country today. And the last but not the least, are the issue of the shrinking civil space, the ability to express yourself, and equality, and digital rights, and all of that. These are issues that today, for the ordinary Nigerian, the everyday essentials of human rights, so to speak, bothers the Nigerian. Not minding the reforms that are being put in place, are they really translating to bread on the table every morning? These are rights. And when we approach this issue from the right-based perspective, in saying these are human rights that should be protected and fulfilled by the government, then government has, the added responsibility of focusing on economic reforms in a manner that, translates, like I said, to real benefits. We've seen the issue, for example, of the rise in or the added value in what we call minimum wage. Is it really enough? How are we tackling the issues of poverty and all of that? Are we coming from a rights perspective and saying these persons are entitled to this because it's are their rights and all of that? When you talk about displacements and the security, do we feel secure in Nigeria today? When we close our eyes, do we see that girl riding a bicycle on the street and feeling very secure and safe? If you go to the camps today, where persons are displaced, what do you see? You see a life completely devoid of dignity and standards of living. Are we talking about the issues of gender-based violence? Are we talking about issues of equality? Is a girl child on the same premise now with a boy son, so to speak, in a manner of access to education and all of that? And when we talk about the ability for people to express themselves without fear, our cyber crimes law enforced in a manner that is rights-based or is used as a tool, by some security agencies that can behave more professionally in terms of arrest, muzzling, freedom of speech. You post something on maybe the social media, you're picked up and all of that. Or we're using the Cybercrime Act in terms of seeing that the country is not robbed of what can come to it through money laundering and all of that.
In a nutshell, would you say that Nigerians have now become more aware of their human rights, or that they have rather become more helpless in enforcing them?
Wow, that's very interesting. To the first part, yes, Nigerians are more aware of their human rights. Are they helpless in terms of means of enforcing them? Then you need to unpack that means of enforcement, either through the courts or even through the National Human Rights Commission and through other mediation avenues. The other mediation avenues have seen the disadvantage, or they've seen the minuses in the formal sector, which are the courts. Not enough courts, the costs, and all of that. So the other avenues are coming up, and they are doing what the court itself should do. And I think we need to encourage those, whether it's mediation, the National Human Rights Commission, agencies that have been set up to mediate. So in terms of that, yes, there is a shift in the positive towards getting justice. But when you look at the formal sector, it's a long, long, long way to go.
All right, thank you. Hilary, I don't know, you are the commission. What are the top three human rights complaints that Nigerians bring to the commission regularly, the top three?
Thank you very much for that
That's
question.
abuses now.
At the top three, number one, gender violence, okay, especially spousal violence. Number two, police brutality, okay. Number three relates to, you could probably say, economic rights, okay, either land issues or employment relations, mostly employment relations, okay. There are other spectrum that you can also think of that is now becoming regular. We have violations in spaces, okay, and these spaces include schools, IDP camps, churches, mosques. So these are spaces that ordinarily people should have felt free. But due to so many competing factors, some of which Romy has mentioned, the insecurity in the country, the economic situation, I will just give you an example. Between the months of September and October, we recorded cases, complaints of child abandonment to the tune of about 2,200. These are men who just abandon their children. Okay, they either move on to another new marriage or just disappear because they couldn't cope with the hardship of and also with the requirement of fatherhood. And you know, under the Child Rights Act and the Child Rights Law that is applicable to practically all the states of Nigeria today, you know, child abandonment is a major human rights violation, and related to that is child survival and development. So we see these cases of violation of children's rights rising all the time. And I'm not even talking about abduction. I'm not talking about school-related abduction or home-related abduction or trafficking, okay? Just child abandonment alone. If we are able to deal with that, the causes and also the support system for Nigeria. And I mean, when we talk about everyday essential, it starts from the home. From the home, it goes to those spaces I'm talking about: school, churches, mosque, market, or even those in the IDP camps. What level of protection do we afford them? Can we say that when a father or a mother or both of them abandon their children, that the state would kick in? Mm-hmm. The state will kick in immediately, make them state children, move them. You know what you have abroad, that they say if you leave your children in the car or at home for 6 hours or 3 hours, the state will come and take them away from you. That's the mortal fear every parent live with abroad. But here, when the parents abandon, the state is incapable. And when I use the state, I mean government, whether at federal, state, and local government, but most importantly, state and local government. Because truly, the federal government, this is not what the federal government should be doing. Okay, but state governments, what are they doing? The social care. Okay, the social care, because take it or leave it, even our fingers are not equal. There will always be the downtrodden amongst us. Even if you sort out everything, everybody, there are those who are permanently going to remain subjects of care for state. So how are we planning for them? How are we even projecting that their numbers would increase every day by day? How are we protecting women who are running away from domestic violence? I am sure that Professor Zilo will say much about this, but the truth is that that protection now is left for NGOs. And you know, under our law, domestic violence is also a crime. So why are men not tried for these crimes? Even if you don't try them for the crimes, how do you protect the survivors, the victims of these crimes? And these are crimes that are also human rights violations. Sexual violence. Okay, sexual violence is now committed by even fathers on daughters, uncles on their nieces. So these are the things we face every day, and these are human rights that are hardly reported because of the social opprobrium, the stigma that is attached to them. And as we mark this very special day, we should always remember that in 1948, when the Universal Declaration, which we celebrate today, was promulgated, it had a phrase or a byline that it is promulgated to become a standard for all peoples and for all nations. So human rights is a civilization. It's either you are living in that civilization or you are a crude and backward nation. So it is that civilization of human rights that made you and I educated, that makes us to go and elect our leaders, that also makes us to say, to demand for accountability. So just imagine a world where there is no human rights. It's like a world where there is no air to breathe.
Thank you very much, Warner. You have said a lot, and we're still trying to lay the foundation for our today's topic, which is human rights and its essentials. Let's go to Professor Ezelo. Prof, I know that you've been listening to the conversation in the studio, and I know that you know some of the pressing human rights challenges facing Nigerians. Let's get your perspective on this. Well, we need to just, cut that, Prof, perspective there because we are having some challenges concerning the audio. We'll get back to you later when the challenge is corrected. Let's come back to Dr. Romi now. We are looking at the various challenges, facing Nigerians concerning the human rights and its essentials. How can we assure, or how can we ensure that the basic necessities like food, water, shelter, and healthcare are available? He talked about, the main thing about human rights here is civilization, just like it's, other climes. What is our challenge here? Why can't we have it here?
I would want to take this conversation to the most vulnerable, in Nigeria today, and Hillary mentioned them. Those citizens, the millions of citizens that are in our internally displaced camps, IDP camps, because they are there because their right to safety and security, has kind of been breached. So they find themselves in these camps where they are suffering double violations now. Violations of not being on their land and violations of being in spaces where the violation of rights is easy. What do I mean by easy? You talked about water, you talked about health, you talked about all of this. When you go to camps, you will discover that, or you will notice, and it will hit you home, that Nigeria has a tall ask in terms of making human rights an everyday essential for most of its citizens. Hillary talked about GBV. That is where it happens most in camps, in the IDP camps, where health is a challenge and all of that. I'll tell you something about the IDP camps. It's a route of violations that happens. First of all, persons are uprooted from their lands.
Okay.
Oftentimes, like in the Middle Belt, through the farmer herders, conflict. In the north, probably through terrorism, whether it's Boko Haram in the northwest, and in the southeast, probably due to the fight for statehood at that point. But what is important is that the common decimal is everybody is displaced. And when you are displaced, it becomes something else. And so we must put in those structures So that even when you are temporarily displaced, I use the word temporarily deliberately because some persons have been in the camp for 15 years, 20 years. And people are born there, they're not documented. You don't even know how many children are born. So the National Population Commission is not in the camps to document births. Deaths are not documented. The type of violations that are coming out from the camps are those that are put forward by NGOs who operate in the camps, maybe at certain points, but not all true, because they are also in camps owing to some funding. And so we need to have the state come in a very deliberate manner in the camps.
Okay.
Provision of water, provision of health facilities, documentation, food, and all that. Food is a right. And when you go to the camps, all these things are no longer everyday essentials for the everyday Nigerian. I think the state should put in mechanisms where we have a deliberate roadmap to returning people home. A deliberate roadmap that is costed, and the state is actively involved in taking people back to their homes, and so that they can live secure lives where they have been displaced. Once you don't do this, then no matter what we say, human rights, Hilary talked about human rights means civilization, and you can't put it any better. When you go to the camps, it's not civilization, it's barbaric. And this is an everyday reality for most Nigerians. So when you say, what can the federal government do, or what can the government do, whether local government, state, or federal, we need to be very intentional, we need to be very deliberate in reversing this trend. We should.
Are you saying the government is not doing anything at all? They are not doing enough?
My fear as an activist about what I see in the camp is this. Not just the government. There seems to be some sort of, is it helplessness? Or overwhelming saying they are in the camps and that's okay. What do we do for them in the camps? I am saying that's not enough. What is very important is returning people back so they can really live a life of dignity, where human rights become an everyday essential for them, where they see the benefits of rights. Persons who run away from home because they can't take care of their children, Hilary mentioned them, for example. In the camps, it's worse. People see their little daughters trafficked. They see what happens every day. And as a man, the man in you, as an African, which is the Afrocentric approach to human rights, for example, the African man is removed from you because you see your wife, you see your children suffering what you could have stood and said, never. Never. But it happens. It happens every day. And if you take people back to their homes and give them protection, then you have, look at what you're talking about, just to digress. If you look at the Benue-Nasarawa Plateau axis, the drop in food production, the food insecurity we're having in Nigeria today, that is another right that is being violated owing to the displacement and the insecurity. And so for me, the security architecture, the displacement of Nigerians from their homes, that is giving us this food insecurity and everything, the government needs to be very deliberate and intentional. The consequences of this, of the insecurity, in terms of food, in terms of quality of life, in terms of vulnerability of citizens, and is so much that we can't be treating this as a footnote in our human rights discourse. That should be the main thing when we discuss human rights in Nigeria today.
Okay.
Thank
So maybe
you.
go back
Let's get to Professor Joy Ezilo. I understand that she's back with us and we can hear her better now. Prof, welcome back. Let me start by asking, are Nigerian women safer today than they were, say, 10 years ago?
Definitely not. Everywhere is unsafe, particularly for women. The streets are unsafe. The schools are very, very unsafe. We know the insecurity now. Every parent, guardian, worst nightmare. Depending on the part of country where you are located, your child goes to school, you will just be thinking, will they return safely to you? And some have taken proactive measures in withdrawing their children from school. Schools have also temporarily closed because of insecurity in order to put measures to ensure safety of school children. And then there are ones that also lack of sanitary facilities exposes them to further risk of being raped, of being violated because they have to use the bush. I recall one particular case where the Supreme Court judge said, assuming the school provided sanitary facility, there would not have been need for this girl to use the bush and to have been violated in this manner. So that's why I'm talking about basic human rights. Human rights to life, things that enable that. Right to food, right to health care, right to shelter, decent work for decent livelihood, water, sanitations. These are critical aspects of human rights that will protect that dignity and worth of human being. And they are still at very, we are still lacking in all this aspect. If people don't have access to water, sanitation, other major utilities that will enhance life, then what are we talking about? I always tell them, when you look at Western Hemisphere, I say we are far apart. You are talking about fine human rights, even about noise pollution, talking about planes flying over your head, and people are getting, if you fly into Europe, you will know that the way they kill their engine to protect those living nearby the airport. We are not even getting to this aspect of human rights in Nigeria, even though we are in a very heavily, noisily polluted environment. But just to say that truly, the gender-based violence, as has been mentioned by Dr. Hilary Obonna, is on the rise. And there are additional ones that have emerged because of the current state of Nigeria and current situation of human rights. Spousal battery is on the increase because every day couples are battling for livelihood. So for those cases we receive, for example, at work, is that, he didn't provide for food. He gave me only 2,000 naira for 1 week. Where will it go? And they are fighting over food. The child stole because there was no food in the house, and then he went and saw something, or she went, and then he or she is reported. So these are things. That's why we should take human rights very seriously, and we look at also developmental challenges and see how we redefine even issues like corruption as a violation of human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ezelo, for your perspective there. So we'll get back to you. Let's come back to the studio now. Mona, you've listened to, the various, background concerning these human rights, the challenges, especially the basic essentials that, that we face in this country. What do you think individuals and communities can do to further promote human rights, since the government seems not to be doing enough?
I can tell you that our communities are already doing a lot, and we just need to support them. And I'll give you some examples. Communities set up mediation mechanisms. Women groups set up mechanisms to settle domestic quarrels. You also see traditional rulers setting up their own kind of court inside the palaces. So we already have those traditional mechanisms, and these are as old as all our ethnic groups and communities. But in terms of social and economic care, we are beginning to see a lot of communities take their matters into their own hands. They set up cooperatives. They set up a group of trade. They do trade together. They come together as communities to own land, to farm together, and to also sell. But the truth is that these things cannot take away the role of the state. And when we talk about the role of the state, we are talking largely about enabling environment. Now, this cooperative, even if you set up 1 million cooperatives and there are kidnappings in your communities, the cooperatives are not going to work. Romy talked about people not going to farm anymore. It's not just only in the middle belt. If you go to the northeast, farming is almost becoming extinct. So even the little that churches or mosques they are doing to set up funds for some of these people. The religious bodies are really doing a lot. But again, how much can you do when there is this insecurity all over the place? We just heard about what happened in Lamurde in Adamawa State. Okay, these are women who came together also to protest, whether they were killed by uniformed people or by militia. Really, it doesn't matter. What matters is that fundamental human rights of women who are already in conflict situation. Remember, they are already in conflict situation, ethnic violence, and now they are protesting lack of security support, and the life has been snuffed out of them. And it goes to also show the attitude of our country towards protest, this dissent, whether it is a group of activists or whether it is schools or whether it is anybody at all. You see the right to peaceful assembly. The day we stopped tolerating it as a country, then we are no longer in democracy. Democracy is not that you have three arms of government functioning. Democracy is the practice, the values, those principles of tolerance, tolerating even when a public official is assaulted. You heard what the president once said, that they insult me all the time, but I continue to face my war. This is the president of the country. Then why is this not going down? Why is law enforcement, once you say you are hitting the street, law enforcement's role is to ensure that you are protected. Every protester is protected. Safety, thank you. But at the end of the day, this thing will continue to go round to the extent that even in families, people will no longer tolerate each other. And that is the day we would have lost it. So I advocate today, the commission advocates that the right to peaceful assembly, protest, freedom of expression, these are the essential human rights that we live with day by day. And when people no longer can tell a government official, hey, councillor, you are not representing us well. Honorable member, you are not representing us well. The day we lose that voice, the day we do that, then we should all just pack our suitcases.
I'll stay with the commission, but just a gentle reminder to our viewers that you can send in your comments and questions. Keep them short. Let's know where you are writing in from. Let's know your name, but make it short and simple so that we can take as many as possible. But stay with you, Hillary. How powerful, or even powerless if you like, is the NHRC to enforce justice?
The NHRC was set up 30 years ago. We are celebrating 30 years. It was set up by the government of Abuja at a time when Nigeria was under immense international pressure, including sanctions, and it was set up as a result of the Vienna Declaration of 1993. From the time it was set up, it was sometimes it was even in the presidency, it was in the National Assembly, but it became a parastatal in the Ministry of Justice. But in 2010, something remarkable happened. The law establishing the commission was changed, granting the commission a very independent statute and also wide-ranging powers. The only institution in Nigeria that investigates complaints of all human rights violations. We now expanded to the 36 states of the country, including FCT. We have powers to institute inquiries. We have powers to make determination of human rights cases, like a court. Okay, so we are a quasi-judicial body as well, and we have powers to determine compensations. Then we also have powers to institute civil proceedings, civil cases in defense of the human rights of people, and then for human rights violations that have criminal elements, like rape, okay, like murder. After our investigation, we send the files to the Attorney General of the state or of the Federation for their prosecution.
Okay.
Now, this is added to the fact that the commission became a first-line charge, okay, from the for funding. So our funding,
So you are powerful, by the
our
way.
funding was secured. I'm just giving you all of these to tell you how powerful the commission has become. And then you know there is however. In every talk there is a however.
Well, so what is the
What is
however?
the
Now,
however?
the however is that the funding can barely allow us to even do investigations. So last year we had 2.5 million complaints. Just assume that you spend 10,000 naira for each complaint to transport the investigating officer, okay, to the complaints, to the respondents, you know. If you spend 10,000 for each of those 2.5 million cases, you are getting over 20 billion naira. How much does the commission get? The commission recently, in the last 2 years, our budget has been increased to just above 8 billion naira. We have 900 and something staff across the country. We have offices we maintain across the country. Some of the offices now belong to the commission because the new the executive secretary has gone into making these buildings permanent, including building new ones. Now, in terms of enforcement, when we finish our investigation, when we find somebody culpable of having violated human rights, we don't have our own police. We still depend on the machinery of the state. Okay. We still depend on the security apparatus of the state to enforce these human rights. Now, what if it was a police officer that was found wanted? So we depend on the police
to prosecute
the police. So at the end of the day, that's where the shortcomings come. For the SARS panel, for instance, we received over 300 complaints. We indicted about 75 police officers. I am not sure any of them is in jail today. The ones that we succeeded in was that we succeeded in paying compensation to the victims of human rights violation. From the coffers of the commission, we paid 430 million to 120 victims. Now, compensation is not just the only remedy. Compensation is the remedy, the financial remedy. Then there is also the other accountability remedy, which means that somebody who has committed extrajudicial killing should face justice. Okay, whether it's police, whether it's the military, whether it's DSS. And we have also succeeded, it's not all doom and gloom. Once upon a time, the DSS committed extrajudicial killings in Apo, and the commission took up the case. The commission investigated it, found them wanting, and wrote to the DSS that the DSS should pay compensation. The DSS put it in their next budget, and they paid compensation. But we don't even want compensation to be paid. We don't want people to be killed. Okay, so we investigated the armed forces for 18 months over the Reuters report alleging that the armed forces committed 10,000 abortions and also committed infanticide and killing of children. We found that they didn't commit abortion, but we also found that they committed extrajudicial killings in a village in Borno State. We've submitted that report even up to the Attorney General, to the Chief of Defense Staff. We are still waiting for the military to do the needful. So our job ends at a certain point. It is now left for the state apparatus, to continue from there. We've had immense cooperation from state governments, from a lot of federal government agencies as well, but we are not yet where we want to be in terms of a culture where government, citizens respect human rights of Nigerians. And we think that any country that doesn't place human rights as a major priority, as a major national priority, shouldn't proudly call itself a democracy. And we continue to say this on the top of our voice on the mountains so that everybody who has ears would hear. It's not just a December 10th thing. Every December 10th we come and talk. As I speak to you, there are people in detention facilities. I didn't say correctional services. Detention facilities Tiger Base in Owerri, abattoir in Abuja that has been ordered to be closed many, many times. So this is almost like SARS coming through the back door. So we need to have that culture. Even we know there are crimes. We know there are crimes. There will always be crimes. But it is how we deal with these crimes, how we are able to ensure that human dignity, that law enforcement does not just carry itself as a law unto itself.
Okay.
One of the beautiful pieces of legislation we have in Nigeria today is the Police Act. But we need to internalize the contents of that Police Act to every police recruit, constable, commissioner, superintendent, all over the Nigerian police force. If we get a responsive and a human rights centered law enforcement in Nigeria, you will be shocked the speed at which Nigeria's democracy would change and thrive. That's our position.
Okay, thank you very much, Ogbonna. Let's get back to Prof now, Professor Ezelo now. We're looking at, how, the human rights, of Nigerians can actually be protected. I know that there are laws or policies that I'm not too sure whether we have adequate policy or laws to protect human rights in this country. And if there are not, what do you think should be done and how should they be implemented?
Yeah, thank you so much. To start with, Nigeria has ratified all the core human rights treaties at international level, that is at United Nations level, and also at the regional level, African Union level. And all of those core human rights treaties are legally binding on Nigeria. And in terms of framework, if nationally, we have human rights protected clearly on paper. On the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, we have fundamental human rights in Chapter 4. In Chapter 2, which some may say is not justiciable, but I believe it is when you think of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which Nigeria has not only ratified, but domesticated, transformed, and incorporated to be part of our domestic laws. So the problem is the gulf between law in the books and law in action. So talking about promotion of human rights, it is government obligation to promote and to protect human rights, to ensure that it is fulfilled, to enforce it through judicial mechanisms, and ensure that citizens' rights and right of all others within jurisdiction of Nigeria are protected. So when I talk about the law in practice being different, even the issue of freedom of expression that is protected under our Constitution, right to assembly that Dr. Hillary spoke extensively about, freedom from discrimination, freedom because torture, protection from torture, inhuman treatment and degrading treatment and punishment. This is also part of, is in the Constitution, is also part of international human rights standards that Nigeria is part and parcel of. And Nigeria has state responsibility to protect, to respect, and fulfill these human rights. So the issue is the disconnect sometimes that even government outside the executive that ratifies this, the judiciary, all the organs of government have to do their bit to ensure actual protection. Because what is the importance of laws or human rights that actually doesn't work in practice, that people cannot realize? So implementation is crucial, and implementation of these standards are fraught with difficulties when it comes to cases of Nigeria. The frontline officers, law enforcement officers, administrators of justice in the justice delivery ecosystem, there are gaps, there are capacity gaps, there are also unwillingness to even protect. You detain a citizen, you don't even tell them for what offense, and you just don't even read their right to them. And then you ask them to bail, and they come also with their people to take money and build themselves. The abuses and violations in Nigeria is so huge, just like the unmet justice needs of people whose human rights have been violated, who are in search of justice, is also huge. They will move from one place to the other. They are like the National Human Rights, which I think, given the resources available to National Human Rights Commission at 30, they've done absolutely very well. But they are handicapped. There are impediments. There are obstacles. How do they enforce even they have quasi-judicial decision making when exercised, when they give decision, who obeys? Do they carry it out? Even on the part of government, they have not even enforced any of the judgments of coming from even a ECOWAS court. And then there is selective make selection with regard even to national court, which judgment is enforced when it comes to people's fundamental human rights. And compensation, just like Dr. Hilary Obonina pointed out, is just one aspect. There is issue of restitution, there is issue of satisfaction, and then also avoiding repetition of the same crime. I sat in the judicial panel of inquiry at the end of NSA's judicial panel of inquiry for Enugu State, and we listened and we heard about police brutality. And sometimes you wonder whether this is straight from film or movie, but they are realities. And people have died from extrajudicial killings and no justice decades after. Nobody is held accountable. Accountability, low prosecution for violation of human rights are part of the problem. And the time is now that is not just thinking of December 10th as a human rights day to discuss all of this. We need to really have put in place frameworks and mechanisms to monitor and ensure full implementation of this standard. Yes, there has been some progress because today in police station, you have also human rights desk, and within 48 hours where they have lawyers, they will tell you they cannot detain beyond that, but some are still not following that. And we know we have administration of criminal justice. People who are accused also have their human rights, and you protect those rights, just like, justice is not a one-way traffic. It's justice for the victim, the complainant, justice for the accused person, justice for the society, and of course the state as well. So when you look at all of this, you see that the problem of Nigeria with regard to essential, even all human rights, there is no longer categories of human rights, and we shouldn't prioritize which one is better. The human rights are interrelated. They are universal and they are interdependent. Economic rights even impact on the person's civil rights, basic right to life. Because if you don't have food to eat, then the person will die. If you don't have access to healthcare, how do you then ensure that right to life, how do you ensure it in reality? So they are all interconnected, and we must, and states are bound, whatever is their religious particularities or cultural specificities, to enforce human rights, just enforce it as all that are equal and not prioritize anyone above the other. And just like we said, insecurity has eaten deep. So the issue of freedom from fear and want is so crucial. People are so afraid, and if people are in that state, what does human rights mean? What does dignity? What does freedom protect? What does justice, and justice for all? Justice, particularly for the poor, for the weak, for persons with disability, or even people with HIV/AIDS will tell you how they are discriminated. I've handled cases of where they are dismissed, just knowing their status. They will be dismissed, and then no remedy available. So effective remedy is part of human rights that must be respected. At the issue of human trafficking, because of push and pull factors, the fact that the growing inequalities, the huge youth unemployment, the gender-based violence, conflict, they are all fueling and exacerbating not just the Japa syndrome, the unsafe migration, the trafficking of persons, where migrant smugglers are feeding on people's desperation to survive, and then it's making them fall prey to these migrant smugglers that just take money from them, and situation can quickly move from migrant smuggling to trafficking. And if you look at many countries, it's not just Europe. It's so sad. Even I was on the street, how many Nigerians are just wasting away in even other poor countries in Asia, in places within West Africa that you wouldn't imagine that Nigeria, as a giant of Africa, that you'll find our citizens there, battling to survive, hoping to reach the promised land where they will have honey and milk flow on the street, or dollar and pounds. And it's not like that. But we have to take action to ensure safe migration, to combat and prevent.
Thank you, Professor Joy Ezilo. Thank you very much. And of Professor Ezilo's contributions, I'd like to get to Romi Mom. What's the most alarming human rights violation that you have handled this year? And what's your perspective regarding how friendly the Nigerian justice system is to, survivors of abuse like this?
So I work for an organization called Lawyers Alert. Lawyers Alert offers free legal services, and we work with vulnerable groups. The most alarming case I have handled or have come across this year in the organization, again, is human rights violations that are perpetuated by state agencies. You see, where we have sanctions that are not implemented, it's a motivation to just keep doing more and all of that. So state agencies in Nigeria, you take them to court, yes, courts can give judgment, yes, but as Prof said, it's not about the judgments, it's can you get the fruits of your victory? Because sometimes even to implement a judgment against a state agency, sometimes you need to go to the Attorney General and get the leave or permission in some places to even implement that judgment. So it goes back again to a state official. So at the end of the day, you just keep going round and round, and the fruits of your judgment don't come to bear if it's against a state agency. Now, so state agencies, in my opinion, from what I have seen working at Lawyers Alert in the last decade or so, you find that what is happening is over 80% of unmet justice after violations are committed by state agencies, and it emboldens them. So, the case I'm talking about is a lady goes to a hospital. I'm feeling some pains in my breast.
Yeah.
Hospital says, oh, it's cancerous.
Okay.
They chop off her breast and put her through all this chemotherapy and all of that. When she goes to another hospital, as the processes continue, it was discovered that that was the wrong diagnosis.
Breast gone.
Breast gone. This was in Benue. We went to court. And what did the court say? Oh, you have come a bit too late. So we strike the case out. Where is the justice in this?
Come a bit too late, how?
Oh, you should have been here, what they call statute of limitation. I should have been here like 3 months or to complain and all of that when your breast was chopped off. I don't want to go into the judicial reasoning or whatever it is. All I'm saying is, we're talking about the essentials of human rights, what it means to the person on the street. I find it difficult as a lawyer trying to explain to that lady. But what it means to her is that the state has failed her, the courts have failed her, we have failed her, government has done the worst and moved away, and they're not bothered. They will do it again. And again and again and again. And so for me, human rights, where is an issue of human rights? there shouldn't be any limitation, and that's what the law says. But judges have chosen to interpret it. Some judges have chosen to interpret it their own way. But all of this is because the citizen is an easy target finally. Hillary was talking about the powers of the NHRC. Fantastic, yes. We were all jubilant when the laws were changed, and the NHRC has the powers to determine cases and ensure its enforcement. She'll be the first to tell you that that doesn't happen. Sometimes interagency cooperation. I was the commissioner at the Police Service Commission for 5 years, in charge of human rights, where the Police Service Commission is principally to see to the discipline of police officers and all of that. When the SARS report was out, the names of these police officers were sent to the Police Service Commission for us to, commend disciplinary actions against them as a constitutional body for disciplined police officers. While we are working on that, another government agency issued a report that, nothing was wrong. Nothing happened. So the three of us, National Human Rights Commission, Police Service Commission, Attorney General's Office, we are working in different directions. So when you talk about the impediments to the realization of human rights in this country, it sits mostly within the agencies that we have voted in, that's supposed to be protecting these rights. Wow. They're supposed to be fulfilling these rights and providing the enabling environment. And so the National Human Rights Commission, as a coordinate organization for this, should be resourced much more to do more than what they are doing. And like Professor Joy is your state, given what they have, you must give the National Human Rights Commission their flowers, especially in the last 7-8 years. It's been a metric ascendance in terms of what they can do. We are praying and hoping that when the resources are given that will match the mandate, then we see an effective implementation of that mandate. And NGOs, civil society organizations, CBOs are doing so much, so much. And we need to see a very collaborative approach between not just the civil society organizations and the National Human Rights Commission, but also with other government agencies.
So it's the state agencies now that we have to hold accountable for the various violations and abuses of these human rights.
Absolutely so.
Okay, all right. Before we continue, we already have some questions and messages from our viewers, which I would like you to respond to before we go on our second break, rather. This one is from Ahmed Baba Dikwa from Maiduguri. He said, human rights in Nigeria present a complex and challenging landscape, deeply affecting the daily lives and future of its citizens. While the Constitution guarantees fundamental freedoms, many Nigerians grapple with violations, including police brutality, restrictions of free speech and assembly, and violence from both state and non-state actors. That's one. This one is Banko from Bama, Borno State. He said Governor Zulum of Borno State, objectively speaking, is truly a champion in human rights. I write from Bama local government as a first-hand victim and a survivor. Now this from Stephen Ohanele. Stephen is from Imo State. He said, what practical steps can be taken to ensure accountability for human rights violations committed by both state and non-state actors? Second, in the context of Nigeria's diversity, how can the state protect minority groups from discrimination or violent extremism? Then child trafficking is on the increase in IDP camp. That's from Gideon Prince. And lastly, from Abdul Ibrahim Iyagi from Lafia. He said, good morning, Nigeria. Improving human rights in Nigeria requires daily respect for the rule of law, accountability and justice. Security agencies must operate lawfully, while citizens should freely express themselves without fear. Public awareness of rights should be promoted in communities, schools, and workplace. Before you respond to some of these comments, the director is urging us to go for the third break. So stay with us. We'll be back after this break. Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And our conversation is still on human rights, its essentials. We have our guest in the studio, and before we went on break, that short break, we read out some of the comments and questions sent to us by you, our viewers, which our guest here would like to respond to. Okay, Ogbonna, I've read out some of these comments and would like to, before we go to Prof, maybe we get your response.
I think my first shot is that the comments you read is a testimony of the fact that Nigerians understand their human rights. I mean, these are ordinary citizens communicating about rights and also espousing the principles as if they work in the National Human Rights Commission. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the situation in Borno State, you know, human rights are violated daily all over the world. But in conflict zones, it's almost tripled in terms of violations. Mm-hmm. And that is where leadership now matters. Leadership matters in terms of the politics of managing conflict, in terms of also the provision for those who are displaced, and what we call durable solutions, your plan to take them back home. And in all of this, Governor Zulum has excelled. And I dare say that he is one governor that understands and prioritizes human rights. The state government has even gone further to begin to talk about transitional justice, transitional and restorative justice, through which they hope to not only resettle the victims of the Boko Haram conflict, but also to talk about how to rekindle their trust in government, in their community, some of which they are even looking beyond to talk about compensation, which is what we call restorative justice, and also to begin to reconcile communities who, as a result of the Boko Haram conflict, are already torn apart. And we think that most states, especially in the north, especially in the northwest, should begin to borrow some leaf from what Zulum is doing, the economic side, the social side, but more of the legal and political intervention. And this, we really think, is some of our best practices in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much, Hilary Bonner. Let me get back to Professor Joy Ezilo. I keep referring the gender questions to you because you are the sole rep in this regard, even though Hilary Bonner said men should be prosecuted, and I wonder why women shouldn't be prosecuted if they commit gender-based violence. Prof, if there is one law that you could change today to protect women, which would it be and why?
I would say child support law and issues around inheritance. There is this problem called the next of kin palaver. Sometimes family members, people working, are asked for their next of kin. Probably before they get married, they will put their brothers or their siblings or whatever. And then they don't change it, or some will even believe that their blood relation will protect them better. And when the unimaginable happen or death, you don't know when it will come. And then the next of kin mention begins to claim rights, and most to the disadvantage of the family of the deceased, and I mean nuclear family, the wife and the children. So that is important to be very clear, even though Supreme Court have pronounced on the right of women and girls to inheritance as a constitutional right. But violation is still highly prevalent, and there is need for education and empowering communities, engaging with traditional and cultural leaders, including religious leaders, for them to understand the importance of this, because sometimes it leads to extreme violence against women. It also leads to poverty, because if they don't have access to means of production, is taken away from them, land, economic trees. Even we've seen cases where farmland, widows are prevented from even harvesting food from farmland. So that's important. Child support, I would say, because there is so much abandonment. And at Wakol, Women's Aid Collective and Tamas Sexual Assault Referral Center, Tamasak, we handle a lot of these cases daily, about 20, sometimes 50 cases a day. And if you look at them, in fact, about 1/5 of them, or sometime that's 20% to 30%, all have to deal with child abandonment, failure to provide necessities for the family. Of course, we know times are hard and there is no safety net, including the government doesn't have that kind of protection or social security, and is a big problem. Sometimes even police will bring people to Wakol offices because they can keep them, they can also feed them for a long time. So how do we deal with this? So that protection, social security, safety net is very paramount, and child support must be an obligation. You can't have children abandon, go to another relationship, have another children and abandon. We have taken note of even the phenomenon of Abuja marriage, where people really don't get married, they cohabit, and then they have children, and they go from one to the other. So we need to make sure that children brought into this world do not suffer. We have to remind ourselves that human rights is a right for all, whether you're a child, whether you're a woman, whether you're a person with disability, whether you're a man, you must enjoy your human rights. And so if the violation is committed by a woman, then she should also be held accountable. But I want to say, and it's important to emphasize, that violations of human rights are not only by state actors. It's not something that we think of vertically. There is a lot of horizontal violation of human rights between private citizens and between businesses, private enterprises, and individuals. So we must look into that, and it's important that people are empowered to rest to their human rights in cases of violation by going to appropriate institutions at their like WACO lawyer or institutional mechanisms like the human rights NAPTI. It is very important that we use all those mechanisms. Awareness raising, promoting equality and dignity. If you look at this thing, it talks about dignity, freedom, and justice for all. That's very, and it's something that have to be on deck, and we all have to be, we don't suffer, that we don't also violate people's rights. You must respect human others. Restrictions that we see.
I think we are beginning to have issues again with Professor Ezilo's
audio
connection. But I have this question while we hope that we reconnect with Professor Ezilo, two actually. And one says, well done NTA, many thanks for the topic of discussion today. It says, for the purpose of this discussion, human rights can never be fully realized in this world, but rather in the world of ideal. Where one person's rights stops, that is where another person's rights begins. And that's from Kayode Busari in Lagos. And to the second, in my opinion, here is that powerful, the problem here is that powerful individuals lack regards for institutions. How can this be solved for the laws to be implemented as it should be? And that's from Asogwa Celestine. I don't know how Romy Mom reacts to this. Human rights cannot be attained here, but in the world of ideal.
Largely, yes, I agree. The issue here is a progressive realization of these rights. You can't be static either. You should be able to go notches up every time. And as the world develops, times are dynamic. Rights you don't see today, you see them tomorrow. You know, in the past, climate change is showing us that there are other rights that we need to look at. And that's why you have generation of rights, what we call the first generation of rights, second generation, third generation. So yes, I agree that we can't realize human rights fully. That's the ideal. But we can progressively work towards achievements of these rights. The danger is don't erode, don't go too slow, go in a manner that is reasonably objective. And for Nigeria, for example, we say right to food, right to health. These are rights. It means they are to be supplied. But the government doesn't have the resources to build houses for everybody. because shelter is it's a human right. So you try your best to give the enabling environment for everybody to own a home, and government is doing that through little things. Education is a right, so we are doing things with issues like JSS, primary education is free, and all of that. Trying to see how those are the progressive, ways to work towards this. But before one other thing that came up very strongly for me here is this issue of communities. Mm-hmm. And I want to share an experience of communities taking advantage of the law to secure themselves. Because security is quite an issue. And like Hillary said, the Police Act, Present Police Act, is one of the best police laws you can see anywhere, because it captures and brings together the quantum and every, issues of human rights into one book, in policing a nation. The problem is that it's not being implemented. But there's a very interesting part of the Police Act, starting from Section 135, that talks about community policing. Not community policing in the sense in which it is being even practiced by the police today. Community policing as captured in the law. In the law, it says, set up community policing committees at either state level, local government level, or divisional levels, where you have citizens coming together to sit with the police, along with other agencies, to discuss their security, make plans, where you have some sort of accountability, and persons know what is going on. It's not just even about early warning and early response. Communities have a voice in their own security. A people-centered public safety, and I would want to see that happening.
We used to have that maybe a semblance of that in the past, where we have community being responsible for the safety and welfare of the people living in the environment.
So now it is being put as it's a law now.
Okay.
That's the difference. It's a law, and law means resources and all of that. Benue State Benue State government is working on that along with lawyers a lot, where we have community policing systems in Katsina Ala and Guma local government. Okay. And I tell you what, it's working in terms of resilience. I've seen these community policing committees come together and form subcommittees and saying, hey, look, how can we help this woman fry akara in the night without being afraid of boys coming to kick up the fires and all of that. And so when you do that, when these boys are involved, they're identified and they're handed over. And so within that small nucleus, there is a semblance of security. Is to replicate this, to expand it. Like I said, the Benue State government is in support of this, and it's working well in those areas in which it is set up. The Yelwater incident, for example, there were early warnings that were sent out. Sadly, the response wasn't as fast as it should be, and we saw what happened. So when communities are involved in their own security, when they have a say jointly with the state, as captured in the Police Act, which is the real community policing, I think we'll have some measure of public safety. We should have some measure of people-centered policing in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Romi. Now, Ogbonna, Victor read out something. I have a question or two to ask you, but I want you to, because I saw your body language when he read out that comment, that where my right stops, that's where your own starts. That statement is so common. How true is it? I mean, before I ask this question.
That statement, and I'm really happy you saw my body movement.
Yeah, your body language.
That statement has always been used by people who don't want others to enjoy their human rights maximally. So let me, on national TV, rephrase that statement.
Okay.
Yeah. Enjoy your right while I enjoy my rights.
Okay. Simple.
How difficult is that? No, how difficult is that? You want to go to mosque? Go to mosque.
No, but
you want to go to church? Go to church. The thing with human rights is that we can all exist where institutions function. Do you know the people who proposed this? people who don't want you to protest because others are not protesting with you. So, but law enforcement can allow people to protest. Why
not
allowing
infringing
Yeah.
the rights of the others?
Okay, can you tell me the human right that a protest will infringe on? They will block the roads, right?
And allow disrupt free movement.
Good. So,
Or distort economic activities.
So law enforcement do what we call cordon. Create a pathway for protesters.
Yeah.
Why the rest of us who are happy with government, we drive our cars and we go. There was a protest, the Goodluck Jonathan fuel increase protest.
Okay.
I didn't know there was a protest coming my way. Beggar. I drove into the protest. I had this light-colored Honda Accord car that wasn't even up to 1 year old.
Wow.
My first car in Abuja, cruising around going to work, and I met these protesters. And they didn't even know that the person inside the car is the grandfather of protest himself. No, they didn't want to know. I said, we are together. Before I knew what was happening, windscreen cracked.
Gone.
Windscreen cracked. In fact, I had to shield my face so that the glasses,
The debris.
but immediately they all passed. I just drove to where I parked the car, waiting for when I'll mobilize funds to change my windscreen. If I report to police, who would they arrest? If I report to police, am I saying now that police should go, and knowing what police will do, it will not even be my windscreen that we'll be talking about anymore. That was wrong. Just imagine if police was amongst in the protest. Police would have just condoned them off my car and they continue to go their way. The presence of a policeman alone would not have made them climb. In fact, one of them climbed on the bonnet and was using his leg to kick the windscreen, and his leg got stuck.
Wow. In the windscreen?
In the windscreen. So I had to put on the handbrake and push his feet off so that I am not even going to be adjudged killing someone. So this narrative of your right stops where mine begins. Let every right be enjoyed.
Okay.
That's, I keep mentioning this phrase, this civilization called human rights. Okay, when you begin to add narratives into it, you are diluting that this is a God-given element. This is our humanity. So just like somebody wakes up, I live in a neighborhood where you see people driving out by 5 a.m. every morning. You see people are driving for morning mass. My neighbors are going to pray in the mosque.
Okay.
Such a beautiful world. So the only thing we lack in Nigeria, first and foremost, the awareness is already there. You will not say people don't know their rights anymore. It is the ability of the state, and I cannot overemphasize this, the ability of the state to ensure that these rights are protected. That's number one. Then the ability of the state to understand that no matter what the state does to protect this human right, it will always be violated by state element or non-state actor. So what do we do to hold people account for those violations? Thirdly, and I will stop there, how do we support institutions that are supposed to protect this right, offer remedies to Nigerians? National Human Rights Commission, Legal Aid Council, NAPTIP, the judicature.
Lawyers a lot.
Yeah, the judicature, the justice, our judiciary and human rights, we need a national emergency.
Okay.
You file a fundamental right enforcement proceedings of someone who is in detention. You are giving a date in the next 2 months. What would the man in detention be doing? Then you even appeal.
It will remain there.
Yeah, you even appeal. The Supreme Court's docket is full. There are people who are getting dates for Supreme Court appeal for 2027. Wow. In fact, I hear that 2027 is even a very close date. Wow. But if it is a political case, If it is a political case between political parties,
It's expeditious.
between government, so what do we prioritize?
We have to stop you
because-
there because
okay.
we are running out of time. And I still have a couple more messages to take maybe before Demola takes his question with Prof.
Okay.
Let me just take a couple of these questions.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
this
Go
one
ahead.
says, human rights desks should be made accessible to all without intimidation or harassment. That's from Ibrahim Biu in Borno State. From Musa Awal from Kaduna, the government should encourage NGOs to promote human rights protection as a fundamental right of all. And from Benedicta, he said this is to the Human Rights Commission official. Private employers in Nigeria treat employers very badly. Private employers treat employees, I guess, very badly. What can be done to reduce or stop the inhumane treatment to these people so as to protect their rights? And finally, I'm Jibrin Isiaku from Niger State. Please, how can you investigate cases and punishment of bandits?
Well, Prof, maybe you respond to that and also speak to the fact of the challenges and opportunities, for human rights in the context of we're talking about digital technology and social media.
Yeah. Thank you. I think with new technologies, they present opportunities for raising awareness and also exposing violators and ensuring accountability. And in Nigeria, it's working, and we have seen few cases where even people, high-powered, high-level, people have been persecuted just because something has gone viral. But of course, the divide, because someone in rural area without electricity, without a service provider, or cannot even afford it, will not be able to use those, or even maybe digitally illiterate. But working now, we have to understand that there are many other critical issues, especially providing information about legal, not only just legal right, but how the procedures people can take if their human rights are threatened or violated, because it might be under threat without violation, and it's important once the early warning signs are there for you to report. And people don't know about this and the bottlenecks of rape-tapism. And I think these are kind of information the government are obliged to provide. What are the ministries of information doing? At all levels, at local government level, they are bound to provide that information. National Human Rights is also having toll-free. NAPTIP, I think they also do. They need to, this institutional mechanism have to fully, they should be wired fully to make sure these informations are readily available and in all languages and across all Nigeria diversity. Because the state of human rights in Nigeria stands at a very critical crossroads. And there are many challenges. Some are very persistent, systemic abuses, restrictions on freedom, especially freedom of expression, the insecurity that we have now, the ongoing struggles for justice and equality by many Nigerians, exacerbating the unmet justice need. But the resilience, especially the advocacy by NGOs, is giving hope that even including faith-based organization, is giving hope that there is a glimmer of hope that we will succeed in ensuring that human rights matter for everyone. The Nigerians are courageous, they are resilient, they are advocating for change. They want to end these widespread violations, end to an impunity, and ensure accountability. And we should all play our part. The media, very crucial. So we thank NTA, for example, in doing this program.
We have to go because we've completely run out of time. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for your time. I don't know if we have 30 seconds for Robin Mom to conclude his thoughts.
Yeah, 30 seconds, I would say we need to treat the most vulnerable in a manner that human rights essentials are a living reality. We need to be intentional and deliberate. Focus for me on IDPs.
We need to be intentional and deliberate. Your parting shots.
Human rights should be made part of our lives, from families to school to government policies and to the activities of law enforcement and security.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Hilary Obunna, who is advisor, who is a senior human rights advisor at the National Human Rights Commission. Thank you very much for your time and thoughts today. Even though you couldn't quickly respond to the employer-employee version, but it's okay. Romy Mom, who is Executive Director, Lawyers Alert, we thank you for coming on the program. And of course, Professor Joy Ezilo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Executive Director, WACOL, we thank you as always for bringing the source story conversation as well. All right, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you so very much for watching. Tomorrow is another day. Let's keep the date, and I'll be here. I'm Victor. As we bye for now.
And I'm Ademolade. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the day.